Hi guys, I'm back with a little video. I'm doing a little chore. I'm filling up small jars with Talens gouache. This is no ad, no affiliation or anything. This is just me facing, it was me dealing with a little COVID stress this week. And the way I do it best apparently is by completing certain collections of art supplies. Not that I really needed any more gouache, but hey. So the thing is that this gouache is attractive for two reasons. The first is that it works really lovely. It's a wonderful gouache. It's just as lovely, I think, as the Winsor & Newton designers. Only it's cheaper. And what I really love about it is that it comes in little glass jars. Just not all colours. So I wanted to complete the entire collection. Not that I couldn't have mixed anything, but you hear that weird noise, that's my cat asking for some attention. So this is colour 301, which is light red. And I'll show you before I start pouring. Oh, this is my drawer with the Talens gouache jars that I already had. And now I'm gonna squeeze this one into the jar. Because I like working from jars and palettes. See? I'm gonna fill it up completely. Because it's just easier to work from than tubes. I find that working from tubes wastes a lot of paint. There's just this much in there left. It's not a lot. Okay, 301. Well, this is the cap. Because the thing is, I couldn't find any of these jars online in shops. Could only find some in some Chinese store, but they had caps that weren't airtight, and these are airtight. But this is actually a jar of acrylic paints that I had for 25 years without touching it. I bought them at the time because I was teaching I was teaching courses well, about 15 years ago. And I bought it from a shop that had gone bankrupt. So it was already old paint then, and now I still hadn't used it. So I got rid of it in the most ecologically friendly way, and decided to at least reuse the glass jars. The paint smelled a bit, so it wasn't good anymore to work with anyway. So I have these caps. I will replace them, or I will put a little piece of painted watercolor paper, a little swatch, so that I can see in the drawer on the top, I can see what color is inside. So I'm gonna continue doing this little chore. I thought I might as well, because I had such a great time going through your comments with the your replies to my request to give me your favorite pigments. It was really great fun to read your preferences and to see the difference. You know, there are some I can draw some conclusions about the fact that there really are a couple of favorite paints that we all seem to agree on. So that was interesting. And I'll show you. I made a little record of it. Here is where I wrote down the pigment numbers and how often they've been liked. So I could sort of register you know, how the popularity of the pigments for my little project that I'm not gonna enlighten you on just yet. I know it's cruel. Hold on, I'm gonna make a little bit of noise. Yeah, just bang it in place. Okay. Okay. This one is, there is a little more paint left in this one. The other one with the 301 that I just filled up was a little bit, there was a big air bubble in there. Okay. It looks kind of neat, does it? It's nice, isn't it? I really like it. So, with the pigments, what I can say is that I think it's about time I make myself a pigment database of all the pigments that I have, because I was going through my watercolors after all your suggestions to check out which ones I have, and I realized that maybe it would be a good idea. Oh, this one is a bad one. Hold on. Maybe it would be a good idea if I make a database of all the pigments that I have, so that I can look it up. So in Excel or something, in a data sheet, so that I can look up which pigment numbers I actually have, or what brands they are, etc., etc. I don't want to over administrate on. That's the reason why I didn't do it yet. Because it's very time consuming, such things, and it's kind of funny, you know. It's kind of interesting to know what you've got and to have a system so you can find what you've got. Because believe it or not, but I've actually been looking my bum off for a set of paints I knew I had, or I hoped I still had, because, you know, there was this time when I bought every brand I could find, and then I was given paints by viewers or manufacturers, and the thing is, you can't keep everything. So I've stopped accepting everything, because I really, literally, one day, you know, my studio began to flood. There was a tsunami of paint at some point in time, and that just lovely, even it doesn't matter how lovely paint is, but at some point in time you don't want anything new. It becomes a burden rather than something inspiring. So hold on, I'm just checking if I can find a little scrap of paper to clean this tube with. Oops, oh god, I was being a bit clumsy. But let me bang this. Whoops. Here goes. It's so lovely to have these little jars. But yeah, so I had a hard time finding some of the paints, and one box I haven't been able to find. A big set of Paul Rubens paints that I purchased second-hand last year. That's what I do when I want to try a paint that I'm not really super sure about that I will use in the future. And with the Paul Rubens, I knew that the quality was not like, you know, I'm used to working now with Rembrandt, Sennelier, Horadam, Daniel Smith. Once you get used to those paints, everything else you use is going to be either weird or not really, it doesn't really compare in a way. And I'm saying weird because I made a new color chart of the, God, it's evening and my head isn't cooperating as much because I'm doing something else. Multitasking means that my head thinks it's having a hard time trying to do two things. But the Mission Gold paints, I made a new swatch card today, this morning, and yesterday, because my old swatch card had gone missing. And the thing was that I don't know if I verbalized it very well at the time when I reviewed the paint, but what I really don't like about this paint is that perfectly wonderful colors have these perfect color names like cobalt blue or something, but then when you look on the tube, on the pigment information, there's anything is in there but cobalt blue. There's no cobalt pigments in there. So then when you swatch the paint, the color is beautiful, but it's not a cobalt pigment. It's not a cobalt pigment. It's not, doesn't have the granulation or the qualities. It's a mixture of different paints. It pissed me off. So, you know, that's why I've become super picky at when working with paints, because you don't only want to have a beautiful color, you want to have a certain effect, a certain behavior of the paints too. And cobalts are typically paints that have this really characteristic behavior. So yeah, and I think ultramarine, the ultramarine blue of the Mijello Mission Gold that I tried that I swatched this morning, actually has a violet pigment added to it. For crying out loud, why? So it's stuff like that. So the Paul Rubens, I heard that Lindsay Weinrich, the Frugal crafter, was enthusiastic about that paint, so I figured, you know, if I can get my hands on the set one day, and I could, then I wanted to try. Did you hear that was air coming out of the tube? So yeah, it's quite a bit of air in this, but okay, I don't care. You know what? These tubes and these jars last you a lifetime anyway. I'm telling you, some jars of this paint that I really do use. It's not like I don't use them, but they literally last you 5-10 years easily. But she was enthusiastic about the paint, so I figured I would give it a try too. But at the same time, I doubt that it's going to be paint that I will be using. It's rather that I like testing it for my own fascination, and well, maybe too. I'm not really super ambitious with my channel about, you know, reviewing everything there is, because there's just no trying, and especially now that all these people have begun making their handmade paints, there's no way you can keep up. And you know, I'm not a millionaire, so I'm not even going to try and test everything. But it's just that sometimes I feel like testing a little bit more. And what I also found out, so but I do have a lot of paints and I want to have it registered. But the Paul Rubens paints, no idea where they are. I did find a rather big lot of Renaissance paints that I must have bought secondhand as well. Sonnet paints and some obscure Chinese brand that I have no idea what it is, which is interesting. And I have a big box of metallic paints. And what else did I find? I found so many paints that are still waiting for a review, which is why I want to have, which is why I want to make, you know, a database for all the pigments, so that I know which ones I've tried and what they look like, and then the ones that I don't use I can sell on, or sometimes I give it away to. Was it 1.5 years ago, in December? Last December, I gave away a lot of paints to charity. So very often it's you know, people who can do with a little extra. I don't ever, don't send me any charity requests, please. I get a lot of questions from people asking me for paints, to share my paints and to send me samples and to sell them little bits of paint. I'm sorry guys, I can't do that. I really don't have the time. That's the first thing. Making swatch cards and everything costs me hours, and I don't have that much time to spare. But also I can't afford to send that out. You know, and I can't do it to one person if I can't do it to everyone. So I don't do it. I just drew a line. I did it a couple of times in the beginning when I started reviewing, but I stopped doing that. So yeah, it's I love helping out you guys. I really do. But you have to take my reviews as my help, because that's all, the rest is too much. Sorry. Right, so yeah, I think I'm going to make the database. And also I thought, you probably know the swatch cards by Jane Blundell. Is she Jane Blundell or Blundell? I always call her Jane Blundell because of the double L at the end. But she's got these really beautiful swatch cards. And I realized that the moment I make a database, I also have to make a new set of cards. Single pigments, cards per paint and per pigment. So I've been looking into that this afternoon, how I can do it, how I can best organize it. And then I thought, how am I going to store all that? I mean, how does she do it? I don't know. Haven't found that yet. But I found some tips by people. There are some crafty ladies who manufactured stamps that you can use for... there's some stamps that you can use for making swatch cards with, which is really great because some people sell printables, but never ever use a printable for a never use a printable for a swatch card, because you will definitely hit the lines with your wet brush. It's very hard to paint inside the lines all the time, and when you do, you will contaminate your paints with the ink from the printer that will dissolve immediately. So it's not a good idea. So there are these, I think she's called Kim Crick, if I'm correct. She's got a website, web shop. She's got a YouTube channel in which she demonstrates a little stamp to make swatches with. And that's actually very smart, because when you buy inks that are water resistant and you black one and you use the stamp, you can also use it to see how transparent your paint is. And that's a really clever thing. But she doesn't ship to the Netherlands. I was gutted when I read that, because I was like, oh yeah, now I finally found something that can help me make my swatches, because I have to do so many. And then she doesn't ship to the Netherlands, which is a bummer, big time. But hey, it's a pity, but I'll just have to find something else. Maybe I will make my own stamps. I happen to know this, well, they call it a factory, but it's not really a factory. It's this business where you can design and order stamps. And I've had a few stamps designed and produced before, not to sell, but to for myself. And yeah, it's okay. So I think I'm going to do something like that. Or I was also thinking that if I make little cards for swatches, that maybe it's not a very good idea to put that swatch into a frame. Because one of the advantages of making these swatch cards, these little cards per color or per pigment, is that you can, when they are unbound, so single file pages, so files pages, small pieces of watercolor paper, you can compare them by putting one on top of the other. So I figured that maybe I shouldn't be painting the swatches in a frame. Maybe I should just paint from side to side and, bleed the paint all over the paper so I can do a good comparison. Okay, here we go. What I noticed is this paint comes out of the tubes wonderfully, by the way. So often when you buy gouache, the pigment and the paint and the binder will have separated. I've had that happening a lot, even more than with my watercolors. So 236, I'm almost there. So yeah, so what do you guys do with your pigments? Do you have do you keep a database on your computer of all the pigments you have, and do you have a swatch card? I saw this lady who, I don't remember her name. She wasn't really a watercolor artist, but I think her specialty was collecting paints. I think she had at least as much paint as I did, and she only used it to color in coloring books. So it was kind of funny because she spent so much money on paints, but she didn't actually use the characteristics, and she had the full Schminky Horadam set. But she created a Rolodex. She bought a Rolodex, and then she had this sort of where she perforates that for holes, a hole punch. So she could put that into and I thought that's a really beautiful system as well, but I don't know, I'm not going to do it. Then I figured that I was going to give myself a card, a filing cabinet, but then only small with 1 or 2 drawers, and then with the small ones for a small card. So I wanted a vintage one, so I started looking at these second-hand marketplaces, and well, I couldn't really find something I liked. It was all very expensive. I was completely bummed out by that. But then I had made an offer on one of them. I don't think the seller agreed with me because I offered a lot less than he was asking. But I thought, hey, can give it a try. And he wanted so much money for it. It's not, it wasn't worth that much. And then I went back to my drawing table and I noticed that I have all these wooden little cabinets with drawers. And I realized that a few of those drawers, about 4 or 5, the small ones, are currently empty. So you just saw the big one with these little jars in it. This is a big one. But I have, I'll get it for you, smaller ones. So there's 3. I have 2 in a little cabinet here on my desk that's empty. There you can see where I took it out. Can you see that over there? That's where I took it out. So this is about ATC size. This would actually be great for to use for color swatching cards. So maybe 1 drawer is not enough, but then I have 2. That will do. So I'll have to withdraw the offer that I made. My insulting offer for that one little filing cabinet, and just stick to what I already have. So I'm sticking on the paint number, and then with a little label, one like that. And then I also add some tape to it, just regular plastic tape. Then I go all the way around, and I do that because these labels tend to come off after a while. So that's the experience that I've had with the ready-made jars. That every time a label falls off, or nearly falls off, I just put some tape around it. So, yes, it will open. Raw umber. That's a very important colour, at least in watercolours it is. Why the gouache? I have a really great book. I'll show you. This Multitalent Gouache, a German book. So if you can read German, this is absolutely wonderful. If you've followed me in the past years, you may know that I have a love-hate relationship with gouache. Personally, I find that some of the best illustrators, art style illustrators, they work with gouache. So I wanted to become as good and be able to do the same thing. It was a bit naive. In the first place, because the artists that I admire are just absolute geniuses. They were born with a pencil in hand. It doesn't work that way for me. And And the second thing is that, I was thinking about something else for 1 second and I lost it completely. And the other thing is that gouache is a medium that can be extremely difficult. Aljosha Blau, the writer of the book I just showed you, doesn't agree with me. He says it's a very forgiving medium. You can always correct your mistakes. Well, believe you me, I managed to produce mistakes that nothing in the whole world can correct. So that's kind of frustrating. And the thing is too that it works different. I think gouache is a good medium to play with when you're used to painting with oils. But when you're used to working with watercolor, it's not so easy. Watercolor is much more forgiving and much easier to work over if something goes wrong or anything. But gouache is so... You can easily turn it into mud, because there's a lot of filler in there. And it's easier to just mess up. Hold on. That's how I get rid of my gouache frustration. I just smash it into the table. So this is the one but last. Another red. You really don't need that many colors, I find, if I'm very honest with myself, I feel a little stupid for buying all these colors, but maybe I got a little bit over enthusiastic about my own project. that I just felt like if I'm going to do this project, I really need to get the full set, which is total rubbish. But I really did have a good excuse because we had quite a bit of COVID stress recently. Last week, my youngest daughter, she just went back to school a couple of weeks ago after having been home for a whole year because I'm in the risk group and with COVID, normally there's no problem with my health. But now with COVID, wasn't so good. So she stayed home. She wanted to stay home. She stayed home, and to be honest with you, I was glad she did because I was really, really scared to get COVID. But I was super lucky because I had the chance to get a COVID vaccination really early on. And then I talked about that to my doctor. And she said, well, now your daughter can go back to school again because after the first shot, you're protected again. So my daughter had just been to school for a few weeks. And then one afternoon, she comes home and she feels ill, really ill. So we had her tested. And the thing was, something went wrong with making the appointment. And they didn't do her test. They didn't run the test. So they did test her, but then they didn't process the test. So, but they never informed us about it, but they let us wait for 48 hours. And then I called to ask for the results. And then they said, we never processed the test. That was super stressful because then our daughter had to go back for another test. So she did the test, and then we had to wait. And I became very angry. Well, angry in a polite kind of way, but I really did urge them to hurry up because we were all isolated again, and there was just no shop. We needed groceries, we needed stuff, and we had been good people staying inside the house, but we had come to this point where after the second test, we really. Our drawers and our cupboards were empty. So, but then they did that fairly quickly, and we heard that there was a negative. The result was negative, so no COVID. Fortunately, but she was ill. It was fever, and she has all the symptoms, but no COVID. I had the vaccine, so, I wasn't scared for me, but I also have, another daughter and a husband. So that stress gone. It wasn't even gone before I found out that the AstraZeneca vaccine that I've had, they were not going to give anymore to young people my age. So that was really stressful because I've been following all the researches about the COVID vaccines, in a very detailed manner. And then I heard they were just gonna stop giving AstraZeneca to young people, and the thing is that it's not yet known if it's safe to give another brand. And that's when I lost it and panicked big time, because I really don't want to be stuck inside the house for another year, and even worse than that, I don't want to lock my kids up again, because they've been inside the house for a whole year to protect me, and I'm grateful. And it's this year has it has done it was hard, but it also did a lot for us. And yet I don't want to. This was enough, So if we don't have to, then we don't want to. So I'm not 100% sure if I can get the second vaccine, the second shot. Some people tell me I can. They read it somewhere. But I haven't seen it on an official site yet. So I'm still waiting for that, and I'm hoping that news will come soon. But I have to be honest with you guys and say that all these tubes of gouache, it's pure COVID stress. I have to tell you that. So I filled up my jars, and the last thing I'm going to do, but I don't want to bother you guys with that anymore, because I've already been talking for half an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut little pieces of watercolor paper that I must have somewhere. I always have these strips. I keep them. I even don't throw away pieces as small as this. This is the back side, front side. And I will just glue them on like this and make a little swatch on it of the paint that's in here, so that on the cap I can see what color is inside. And that's really handy when you work from a box or a drawer like I do. So that's a little chore I'm going to do now. And then maybe one thing that I can say, the other day when I uploaded my other video, my husband said, oh my God, your accent is so British now. And he said you're going to confuse your viewers, because they're not going to know anymore whether you're American or English or Dutch. So let me clarify that for you. I am Dutch, but I studied English, and I reached the... oh God. I wanted to tell you what level I reached, but a near native. I reached the near native level in British English, so received pronunciation. So that's posh English. And so I can do that. But then I worked online, and I had mostly American customers. And the thing is, I am super adaptive when it comes to my accent. So you can hear in every video whether I've been speaking a lot to my English friends and have been listening to English videos, or that I've been speaking to my American friends. My husband and kids can hear it, and they always laugh at me. But it's even worse because I also do it in my own language. I live in the west of the country, in Zeeland. Sealand. It's the province Sealand. It is indeed very close to the sea. And I'm going to give you a little lesson of pronunciation in Dutch. And, maybe you can just join me here. We have this what do you say? We have this noise we make when we speak that English people don't like, British or English speaking people don't like. It's called the G. It's not like the G or the J sound as it is in English. It's so do it. Repeat after me. Okay, now we all know Scheveningen, so not Scheveningen, which my American friends always say. Scheveningen. We went to Scheveningen, and The Hague, no, Den Haag, and Scheveningen. So the reason I use this sound, and I want you to repeat after me, is because I want to teach you a little accent, Dutch accent. So I want you to repeat after me once more. Scheveningen. Did you do that? Okay, well done. In Dutch, well done is goed zo. Goed zo. Well done. Right. Now, where I live in the west, in Zeeland, we don't say goed zo. We don't say the instead, we say an H, so goed zo. Now you. We don't say goed zo. We say goed zo. Goed zo. Okay. I also lived on the eastern side of the country. And there, the accent is different. There we also don't say goed zo. There we say goed zo. So we don't say but so now you, not goed zo, but goed zo. Well, that's a very good example of the difference between accents on, two sides of the country. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because people who know me well can hear exactly who I've been talking to. So I have quite a few friends who still live at the east in the east of a country. So every time I talk to them, my accent becomes goed zo. And every time I talk to people living here, my accent tends to go towards goed zo. I'm sort of a homeless person when it comes down to accents. I've had that my whole life. It's the first thing I adapt. When I wrote my final thesis in university, this is what I wrote about. I studied English and I graduated on my major was linguistics, social linguistics. And the thing is that somebody who adapts their accent and their colloquials, the words they use, when they adapt it to the people they are talking to or the people they interact with, the adaptation of the way you speak is actually an indication of a desire to belong with that group. It's a subconsciously it expresses a social desire. So apparently I want to belong with everyone. So that's a little clarification on the matter, and it's incredibly interesting. And I've always been studying people without letting them know that when I hear them speak by observing other people's use of language, I can tell a lot about how they feel in a group or how they are socially oriented, what their social ambitions are. And that's something that my husband made me look in the mirror. So in all my videos, you will be hearing me going back and forth between English and American, and I even have a New Zealand and an Australian friend that I sometimes speak online. So, and sometimes you will hear me say words that, you will hear that I've been speaking to them as well. It's just me. I'm not trying to fake being interesting or anything. This is just the way I do it. I couldn't even control it. There have been times in the past, in previous videos, that I did try to keep it in mind and try to control it. But the thing was, you see me filling up these jars of paint and getting lost in, you know, in multitasking. That's what's happening in my head the moment I start thinking about things like that. I can't speak normally anymore the moment I try to mind the way I speak and try to mind my accent. So early on I've decided not to do that and to just blab away. Only, yeah, you will hear me change accents regularly probably, and maybe one day I will settle on something and that will just be Mandy-ish, I don't know, but until then, this is what you get. Right, I've been talking to you a long time. Well, I hope you liked a little chat, and if you still want to tell me your much preferred pigment numbers that I referred to earlier in the video, check out my previous video. If you don't have time, you can also write it down here in the comments below. What I wanted to know is your favorite pigment numbers, 3 at the most, if you can limit yourself, but please try. It not just because I don't want to do a lot of work registering it, but because it forces you to think about which ones you really like best. And what you can also add, and give me pigment numbers, not names, because the names don't really say a lot. Like I just said about the Mijello, they have this cobalt blue that doesn't have any cobalt pigment in there. So, you know, if you tell me, Mandy, I love cobalt blue, and in your mind you have the Mijello, and I'm going to do something with that in a project, you're going to say, that's not the one I mean. So give me the pigment numbers, and you will find them either on the website of the manufacturer of your paint, or on the tube itself somewhere. Let me see if it's on here somewhere. No, it's, oh yes, it is here, but this is gouache, but you will find it. You will find it somewhere. And next to your 3 favorite pigments, or maybe 1 or 2 favorite pigments, but 3 at most, what you can do, if there is one pigment you have never tried but you are very keen on trying one day, you can also write down the name of that pigment. That would be really great. And I don't want to tell you anything yet, because I'm working on this project and it's kind of big, and I don't want to give away anything in the sort of like fetal stage yet, because I'm still the project is there, but there is still a couple of things I have to arrange to really start it, and I don't want to tell anything prematurely and then have to, you know, reconsider. I'm hearing all kinds of things, and I think my cat is a terrorist, especially now, because he has got food that he doesn't like. He wants salmon, not beef, and I gave him beef and he wants salmon. So what he's going to do is he's going to terrorize me until I give him his salmon. You just gotta love cats, don't you? Okay, thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with another video about my project soon, I hope. See you then. Bye.